And we are back, and after an absolute defensive masterclass from Bayern Munich, I will be looking for something similar as Manchester United try to redeem their 7-0 defeat to Liverpool in the Europa League tonight. Welcome to tonight's predictions. It is, of course, the Europa League and the Europa Conference League last 16 first legs this evening. So I'm going to be doing my predictions for every single game. I'll do a breakdown of all of the Europa League games and then just give you all of my scores for the Europa Conference as well. We don't want the video to be too long, so let's just get straight into it. And we start with the Europa League, and we kick off with the early games, which start with Bayer Leverkusen up against Ferencváros. The Hungarian side, of course, looking to get to the final, which is going to be played in Hungary, so it'll be a big achievement for them. But I think Bayer Leverkusen, the form that they have been in the last few weeks, and off the back of that incredible comeback win against Monaco in the last round, you really have to fancy the Germans in this one. I don't think Ferencváros will make it easy for them, but offensively, Bayer Leverkusen have been too good in the last few weeks. So I'm going to go for 3-1 to Bayer Leverkusen to kick off today's predictions. Next up, we move on to two teams that are well renowned for their defensive outlay. That is, of course, Jose Mourinho's Roma and Real Sociedad, who did top Manchester United's group in the group stages. Really tough one to call this, because like I say, it really just comes down to which defence comes out on top. I could very easily foresee this being a 0-0 draw, but Roma have recently got their key players back offensively, the likes of Dybala and Julian Belotti. So I'm just going to edge this one in Roma's favour, and I'm going to go for 1-0 to Roma. Next up, one of the big games this evening, if you're an English fan, it is Sporting Lisbon up against Premier League leaders Arsenal. The only real question for this game is what sort of team are Arsenal going to put out? I think off the back of what happened against Bournemouth at the weekend, you're more than likely to see Reece Nelson start. Maybe a couple of others like Smith Rowe and players that you've not really seen so much, Kieran Tierney. I still think Arsenal are a very good side, even if they do rest a whole bunch of their usual first-team players. But I don't think Arteta will rest all of them. I think you'll still see a few of the usual starters in the starting lineup. However, Sporting Lisbon are a very good team. I obviously backed them heavily in the last round, and they were able to pull off their comeback win away in the second leg last time out. So I'm not going to give Arsenal the win. I think Arsenal are more than capable of getting the win, whatever side they put out. But I still back Sporting Lisbon's ability, and I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in this one, with my full prediction being Arsenal to take it when it returns to the Emirates. Next up, it is the two Union sides going head-to-head. Two sides that were actually in the same group, which is a very bizarre circumstance for the Belgian side, who now have to play Union Berlin in 3 games of Europa League in a row because they've not had to play the playoff rounds. But Union Berlin are the team on form. They haven't been at their absolute best in the last couple of games in the Bundesliga, but they have been up against the likes of Bayern. So they still sit 5 points off the top of the Bundesliga. They're in a more than capable of position of beating the other Union. I can't say their full name. It's like Union Saint-Gelard or something. I'm going for Union Berlin to take this one. I'm going to go for 3-0. That might be a little bit disrespectful, but I just think the way Union Berlin have played so far this year, they should be earmarking this as a fixture they should be winning, and it's a good chance for them to redeem themselves after not winning their group, which I'm sure they expected to do so. On to the evening games, and we start with Juventus up against Freiburg. More Bundesliga teams in action in this one. And yeah, another tough one to call. Freiburg are another team that are relatively good defensively, and they've got some cheeky little players that hit well on the counter-attack. And Juventus are obviously under a lot of pressure right now after their points deduction. The Europa League, realistically, is their best chance of getting back into the Champions League for next season. They are more than capable of pulling off the comeback in the Serie A, but with that points deduction weighing heavily on them, it may not be possible. So I think Juventus are going to be at full strength for this, and you would expect them to beat Freiburg, but I'm not backing it to be an easy game for them, and I'm going to go for 2-1 to the Italians in this one. Next up, it is Sevilla up against Fenerbahce, and another team looking to bounce back from a horrific defeat in Sevilla, losing 6-1 to Atletico Madrid at the weekend. They come up against the Fenerbahce side that have been fairly inconsistent this season. They've been better in the last few weeks, but still not playing to their best of their abilities. And Sevilla's pedigree in this competition speaks for itself. So I'm going to go for a Sevilla win. I'm just going to go for 2-1 though. I'm being a little bit cautious with the fact that they did lose 6-1 at the weekend. So we'll see what happens in that one, but I am going for Sevilla. Next up, it is Shakhtar against Feyenoord. A really interesting one to call this. Feyenoord, the leaders of the Eredivisie right now, coming up against the Shakhtar Donetsk side that refuses to roll over. I predicted them to lose a few times over the course of this season, but they keep seeming to pull out results. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Shakhtar Donetsk in this one. That might be a little bit of a weird one. I think Feyenoord are definitely more than capable of getting something in this game, but I don't know, I've just got a feeling on Shakhtar tonight, and I'm going to go for 2-0 to them for that reason. And finally, in terms of the Europa League, it is the game that I have deliberately saved till last. It is my club, Manchester United, up against Real Betis. And as we've mentioned a couple of times already, an opportunity for United to redeem themselves off the back of that 7-0 drumming by Liverpool at the weekend. They come up against a Real Betis side that at the weekend drew 0-0 with Real Madrid, and they have a former Manchester City manager in charge with Manuel Pellegrini. They have a lot of quality players, the two probably standouts being Nabil Fekir and Sergio Canales. They are the biggest threats for United this evening. I'm just hoping that we've learnt the lessons from Anfield, and I think we're going to try and be a little bit more defensively solid in this game. My worry is, of course, that the mentality hasn't recovered quite just yet, and in an attempt to redeem themselves, they go a little bit too gung-ho once again and leave themselves vulnerable to counterattacks. That would be a real problem if that is the way that we go, but I'm expecting a more defensive outlay. I am thinking that we do everything in our power not to concede in this game and maybe hit Betis with our own sort of counters system. Again, kind of like with the Roma Sociedad game, it wouldn't surprise me to see this one finish 0-0. But like with the Roma Sociedad game, I'm going to go for 1-0 to the home side, which will see Manchester United in an okay position travelling to Real Betis next week. So fingers crossed we get the result tonight, but I am very, very cautious after what happened at the weekend. And before we leave today's video, we do of course have the Europa Conference League games for you this evening. All of the predictions are on your screen for you right now. I would say the really tough ones to call tonight are Anderlecht against Villarreal. Anderlecht haven't been at their best this season, but then neither have Villarreal, so that's why I've gone for a draw in that one. And I would have gone for Nice to beat Sheriff, but Sheriff showed some real grit and determination in the last round, which saw them go through, which is why I've given them the benefit of the doubt for their 2-2 draw. Don't really have anything else to say about any of the other fixtures. They pretty much go with form and who you would expect to win their respective games. So, as always, before I leave you, a quick reminder to drop a like on the video, share it with a friend, subscribe to the channel, and of course, let me know down in the comments your thoughts on, firstly, last night's action and PSG getting knocked out of the Champions League once again. Secondly, your thoughts on my predictions for this evening's games, and of course, don't forget to include your own predictions in the comments section as well. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be back tomorrow morning with my next round of Premier League predictions.